Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us all here today. Today's shiur should be B'schus, the Ilu Nishmas, our dear friend Menachem ben Yisrael Yaakov, as well as my dear aunt Rivka Bas Gavriel Tzvi, and for Dovidal's grandfather, as we know him as Zaidi, Shmuel ben Yosef Dov HaKohen, and the Refuah Shalema Bekarov, Meshalem ben Sarah Rachel, Miriam Bas Sarah, and for a quick recovery from Mendy's daughter from her heart procedure today that went very, very well. And her name is, Ariella Sarah Bas Bela Rezel. We are on page, I want to add, and yes, and also, yes, and for a big refuah for this young boy who's unfortunately in a terrible car accident yesterday, is Yair Yehoshua ben Chaya Etra. All right. Today we are going to move on to the third of the 5 principles in order to have full bitachon in Hashem. And today we're going to talk about a topic which is actually very interesting, being that we had a lot of refuah shleimus today. We're talking about trust in other people, and one of the specifics are going to be a trust in doctors. And so the concept of the third principle is, when we have full trust in Hashem, how do we go about our lives when we enlist others for their help, to assist us in our tasks? Whether it be something that we just might need a job, maybe it's a doctor that we need in order to get better, or maybe it's a shadchan for those who are seeking a shidduch, looking to get married. There's all kinds of different necessities that we have in our lives, and those require help from other people. And so how do we juggle the bitachon in Hashem, and as well as dealing with the idea that we still need to seek other people? So we don't want to kind of hinder our trust in Hashem, but we also want to do it in a way where it makes sense. Because one of the things that we know is that Hashem likes to run the world b'derech hatava. But derech hatava is you do enlist other people's assistance with different tasks that you need. And even you're going to see, Rav Av is going to talk about when it comes to a doctor, it's even more stringent, where we will learn very, very soon, the next couple of months in Shaar Habitachon, that it is not okay to rely on a nace. So if somebody is really deathly ill and he doesn't seek doctor's intervention because he says, I'm a Baal Bitachon, well, if you're really not on that level, that your entire life revolved around just bitachon, and Rav Av is going to talk about today how that type of level does not exist today. A level of someone who's so pure, such a high madrega, that he fully relies on Hashem and Hashem only, and that person, it says, yes, that person does not have to go to a doctor. Rambam talks about that. But today's days, as far as we know, that person does not exist. And so we're going to talk about how we go about enlisting the help of others. V'akdama hashlishis. The third fundamental principle for full bitachon in Hashem is sheyachid elikav b'v'tchaynoi boy b'masher hu chayil v'toyach bay. That one should place his trust exclusively with Hashem in any area where he is obligated to trust in Him. And whichever area we're going to talk about later in Perek Dal, it talks about a bunch of different areas where it requires you full trust in Hashem and Hashem only. But V'al yishatef zulasa imay. He should not make another being a partner with Hashem, which means you shouldn't go and trust another person. I'm using the word trust very strongly over here, not to enlist on anyone else's assistance, but you shouldn't put your trust in anyone else, and thus you're making that person a partner with Hashem. And he talks about why. He says, "V'yiftach Allah ve'al echad mehabruim," placing trust in Him and also in one of His creations, meaning trusting in Hashem and then also in another person. For his trust in God will be undermined by his making someone else a partner with Him. What's the problem over here? The problem is you can't give 2 people the same task. Take Hashem out of this. You go over to 2 people and say, hey guys, I need this done. What's going to happen? What's going to happen is one person is going to rely on the other. And so therefore, at the end of the day, nothing's going to get done. Now, the metaphor is not to say that if you rely on another person and Hashem, that Hashem is not going to do His part. The metaphor over here is to understand that you cannot entrust two people to do one thing. And therefore, when you're trusting, you need to trust Hashem, not another individual, in order to get what you need. And he says, Rav Av does not mean that enlisting another person's help is the problem. The problem is that the reliance that you have, and he puts a little emphasis on the word reliance, because the trust, yes, we trust in Hashem, but rely on the outcome. That's the point over here. We're going to rely on the outcome of what you need. Like, for instance, a doctor. You seek help from a doctor, but you rely on the outcome, which is you getting better, that's up to Hashem. And that's when he wants to press over here. He says, you already know it's said about King Asa, despite all his piety. Now, King Asa was one of the Jewish kings, and he was actually a very, very big Baal Bitachon. And he was actually a big tzaddik. And he put full trust in Hashem. He went to war against a country, and they were so much stronger than him, and he didn't care. He said, I believe and trust in Hashem, and Hashem is going to put me through this, and he did win that war. Later on, King Asa, he wound up getting an illness in his leg. And what happened with King Asa was he went to the doctors for help. Now, Hashem punished King Asa that he didn't seek help from Hashem, that he sought help from a doctor. Now, you think about it, what's the problem? You just told me that we're allowed to go to a doctor. You're right, you are allowed to go to a doctor. And we should go to doctors. But the trust that we have in the outcome has to be in Hashem. The inevitable, what's going to happen, whether good or bad, that's only on Hashem's decree. We go to the doctor because the doctor is the conduit in order to do what is normal procedure in this world, because that's the way Hashem runs the world. But whether or not you get better, that's strictly up to Hashem. And so when King Asa went to the doctors, he was punished. His punishment was that his leg never got better, and he was crippled for the rest of his life. But the problem over there wasn't that he went to the doctor. The problem over there by King Asa is that he didn't go to tzaddikim, to chachamim, to find and say, why did I get sick? You think it's a little absurd to do that. But we are held on different standards depending on the level that we are. And King Asa was on a very, very, very high level. And so the standard for King Asa was to first go to Chachamim and say, hey, what's going on? Why am I hurt? Why do I have this infection? And then, of course, he would need to go to a doctor so the doctor could do his part in order to heal him. But his avera was that he never went to Chachamim. He only went to the doctors for help. And thus him saying to Hashem that my trust in getting better is only in the doctors. I don't care what the avera was. I'm not looking for that advice. And because I'm showing you that I didn't go to the Chachamim. And that's why he was punished. And so Rav Av wants to talk over here and say, he explains that by King Asa, how does that relate in today's days? He says the Rambam notes that although the Torah acknowledges the people who are not on this ideal level of Bitachon, as we spoke a minute ago, he says the Torah does mention where people are required to repay someone tsar, ripi, sheves, boshes. What is that? When you hurt someone, you're required to pay for their doctor's bills. Why does the Torah say that? Because the Torah is acknowledging that you do need to seek medical attention when you are hurt. But what the Rambam is trying to say over here is that because we don't have anyone on the level that can strictly only trust in Hashem, because he's on that highest level, he does have to seek human intervention in any one place. And so the bottom line is, when we do seek human intervention, we seek assistance from others for a job, as a doctor, or for anything else in our lives that we need our help from someone else, the trust that we have is in the outcome. That's what we have to have our trust. We are allowed to enlist others to do so, and we're encouraged to enlist people who are capable of doing those things. So if you need tzedakah, you should go to people who are capable of giving tzedakah. If you need someone to help you move a couch, don't call on a 6-year-old to help you with that. Call on someone who's physically able to do so. But the trust it should be in the outcome. The outcome of which you desire is where your trust should be. But we have to understand that the outcome which you desire and what is decreed might be two different things. And so that's what the end result is. Enlist others for your help. Encourage others to help each other, because that's what's needed. But at the end of the day, we need to understand, internalize, and trust that it's Hashem that makes that happen. Thank you, everyone, for joining us here today, and I love you all.